Oh, bless me. Hey YouTube. Most of the time my story times are about friendships and sometimes funny things. Yeah, this story time is going to be more of a personal story, so not really going to be any funny parts to it. I tell the story, I in no way mean to hurt anyone's feelings, or I'm not bashing anyone at all. I'm not bashing my mom, I'm not bashing my dad. Of them both, I have a good relationship with both of them to this day. I'm just telling what happened in my life from my perspective and how I felt at the time. This story happened around 1998 until 2012 when it all happened. I was young, my family was relatively happy. We were like any other family. I was a relatively happy kid. I would play with my siblings. I would play PlayStation. I would Dragon Ball Z after school, play outside with the neighborhood kids, all that good stuff. And I remember my mom and my dad were relatively happy too. I never really saw them argue much when I was little. I didn't really pay attention much. I didn't think there was anything to worry about because I was, 5 or 6 years old. So yeah, I was living my life and my parents were gonna be there. So that's pretty much how I saw it. How pretty much every kid at that age sees their life. I remember my dad would come home every night and he would leave every morning for work. I think he worked at a factory or something. I'm not entirely sure what all of his jobs were, but I know at that time he would leave in the morning and we'd see him come home every night, 5 o'clock or so. And I remember just how excited we all used to get when dad would be home. We would hear the door close, we'd be so excited. We'd be like, yay, dad's home. Talk to him, hang out with him, all that stuff. Like, when you're a little girl, little boy, you think your dad is just the coolest person in the world. And he was. Sometimes he would bring donuts and we would call it donut day. And that was like a holiday at my house. Like whenever my dad brought donuts, it'd be donut day and we'd eat donuts, and I would love the little powdered ones with the cream inside. Those were my favorite. Fast forward to middle school and we were still, getting along. I remember we went to Disney World when I was in 6th grade, and there was this like altercation because we brought the dogs along, and so we couldn't leave them alone in the hotel. So then only one of my parents could go to the parks with us, and it was weird. So my dad ended up staying behind in the hotel in Florida with my dogs, and then my mom and I and everyone else went to the parks, and he made it seem like it was okay. That was the first time I really saw a noticeable, like, weird, disagreement between my parents. My dad had gone around and had a whole bunch of buffets, went to a lot of restaurants. So in my opinion, he could have just gone to the park because he ended up leaving the dogs anyway to go eat, but that's just me, whatever. Yeah, that was the first time I saw them argue that I can remember. And I just remember it being really uncomfortable. Throughout middle school, I feel like was my busiest years, so I didn't really pay much attention to like the dynamic of my parents. I know that as a family, I felt pretty good. As a kid, I felt pretty good in my home life. We weren't the richest family, but we had what we needed. If I needed something, I would just ask and I would get it. I didn't really know much about struggle at the time until later on in my middle school years. Everything was relatively good, relatively comfortable, and I just went through middle school like everything was all right. I mean, every once in a while there'd be a disagreement, but it wasn't anything big, you know what I mean? No arguing, nothing like that. Until high school. 2008, we had that economic crash or whatever. I know my dad was laid off and he actually didn't have a job for almost a year, I believe. It might have been 8 to 10 months, I'm not entirely sure. It could have been 6, but he was unemployed and he could no longer provide for the families. I remember I was seeing less and less of him. We had a lot of struggles going on financially. The car kept breaking down. We would have to walk to like Warden Martin to like get it fixed, and we would have to take taxis home. I remember I would be waiting at school forever to be picked up, go to school not knowing what we would have for dinner sometimes. That's how bad like it was. My mom was trying to provide for a family of 6 with a salary that's probably not much more than $30,000 a year. But yeah, things were pretty bad at that time. My dad didn't have a job for a long time, and I'm pretty sure that caused most of the problems. I feel like my relationship with him definitely was its weakest at that time in high school. From 2008 to 2011 was the worst time, I would say, for me in my home life, in my life. It was bad. I would see school as a break. I would love school. I hated weekends. I hated holidays. He would always be in his room, burning incense, watching movies, playing video games. I know I would see him come out to use the bathroom and to get food, and then he would literally spend all day in his room. I know I would argue with him a lot. I would notice my mom crying a lot, and I was just like, I know she's crying because of dad. I know I just spent most of my time with my brothers. Sister was in college at the time, so she didn't really have to put up with much of it at this point. Basically find refuge in my siblings and my animals and video games and my friends. You don't really think that anything bad will happen to your family until it does. I just remember my younger brother just distancing himself emotionally from everything. And I feel like even now he still has that like protective barrier because of the things that we've gone through in this time period. I remember just counting down the days until I could go to college because I was like, I don't want to have to deal with this. It's stressful. I don't look forward to coming home. And yeah, I was looking forward to the days that I could go to college and not have to deal with it every day. Fast forward to college, my dad got a job sometime in between 2008 and 2011. And things were relatively all right then, but he would still spend most of his time to himself. He wouldn't really talk much, just be in his room. He would go to work, come back, be in his room. Every once in a while I'd hear a little bit of arguing. I try not to hear it because I just don't want to. I would come into Benjamin's room and Benjamin would tell me that he heard some things that they were arguing about, which I'm not gonna get into too much detail because it's not really relevant to the story, but he would hear basically everything. And every once in a while he would tell me. And it wouldn't be surprising at the time. It wouldn't surprise me because at this point, you know, as a teenager, he actually overheard a lot of stuff that went on in the house that I didn't even find out until even recently, some of the stuff. So I just remember telling my older brother like what was going on, and he didn't want to believe me. Because to him, I guess dad was still hero, you know what I mean? Like, he can't do anything wrong. There was one night that I felt like changed everything for me. Every day after I would go to bed, he would get up and he would put on clothes and he would leave. And I remember hearing that from Benjamin, so I thought, you know, this time I'm gonna catch him. So I stayed up with Benjamin and I made it seem as if I was sleeping in Benjamin's room that day, when in reality we were waiting for my dad to get up. And sure enough, as soon as my mom left for work, my dad got up. Sorry for the phone. As soon as my mom left for work, my dad got up and he started putting on clothes and he left. So I followed him on my bike. That pretty much solidified in my mind that we as a family were dealing with something that was a lot more serious than I had hoped for or anticipated. I remember in 2011, I was in college at the time. I was going to school in Chicago. I was at home for Christmas break. I was at home enjoying the holidays and my parents were having tension as usual. And at this point, it got to the point where it would annoy me while I was there, but I would count down the hours until I could just be alone again and not have to deal with my parents not getting along. Not long before I had to leave for school again, my mom was walking through the house and she was looking very upset. After, I was like, what's wrong? Because she never really shows things on her face. She likes to hide things. And she told me, she said, we're getting kicked out of the house. We were being evicted from our house. Our landlord and my dad were friends, and I guess something didn't go right. I don't know the whole story, but we were being kicked out of the house. And I remember just the pit in my stomach, it was so huge because I was like, so we're homeless, you're saying. She was trying to pull it together. She was paying for 3 tuitions and everything else at the house. She had 2 dogs. It just wasn't good. So I remember just being like, there's nothing I can do. I don't have any money. I can't fix this. I'm 18. Like, what's a kid supposed to do? So I went back to school and I remember receiving this call from my younger brother, and he told me, Dad's not coming back. Is this a joke? What do you mean Dad's not coming back? Where did he go? He was saying that he overheard my dad speaking when they were packing up the house, and my dad was saying that he was done, he's not doing this anymore, and he got in his truck, he got in a truck, he loaded his motorcycle in it, and he drove off. And that was the last time my brother saw him. That was the last time I saw or spoke to him in about a year. It was, let's see, 2012 is when my dad decided to leave us. And now it's 2016, almost 2017. So it's been a while. It's been some time, almost 5 years now. So a lot's happened in between then and now. I would say at first I was angry with my dad for leaving us when we needed him most. Everybody dealt with it differently. I know for me, I just kind of bottled it all in. I didn't really talk about it with anyone. I don't tend to talk about things with people, but I know my brothers, they had different manifestations. My sister, she has her own manifestations, and some of which people still go through to this day. Anyways, my mom and my brother ended up homeless for about a month until they could find a place to live permanently. I remember right after my dad left, I was having trouble paying for college. Mom's salary wasn't enough for me to get through school, and I almost had to drop out. I would have to actually tell the administration my situation in order for them to basically take pity on me so that I could finish off the year with a debt that was over $20,000 on my bursar. In a way, what my dad did kind of did help me get through school. As of today, I would say that everything's pretty good. When my dad left, everyone was really upset with him. It was a big severance in the family at this point, and it was everyone, and then there was my dad. A little bit after I got over what had happened, my goal was to make sure that everybody else got over what had happened as well. I would say the last time that my whole parents were together was at my graduation, and it made me really happy to have them with me again. When they first broke up, I would go to sleep and I'd wake up thinking that it was all just a nightmare. And my dad's still gonna be here, and we're all gonna be together still. You know, when you're younger, the people that have gone through divorce or who have parents who have divorced, when you were old enough to understand what was going on, you hope that maybe there's a chance that they'll get back together. But then you just have to realize that not everything works out as a romantic movie or a romantic novel, and it's their lives, really. I was 18 at the time, but yeah, as you grow up, you just realize that things aren't always gonna go as you want. They just couldn't do it anymore. They just reached that threshold that they couldn't hold on anymore. So I think at first I was more hurt because my family was no longer together, but I would say we're in a better place now than we were in 2011, 2008, all those years ago. So if anything, the split was for the better. And this whole situation has just helped me realize that not everything is rainbows and lollipops. Divorce, it sucks. But in this case, it was probably necessary because they're both happier than I remember them being in a very long time. That's my video, and I hope you guys enjoyed it. I'm sorry if it was a downer. I'm sorry that I chewed gum throughout all of it. Like, comment, subscribe on this video, and be sure to ask any questions that you have. Tell me any of your stories if you've gone through this. Also leave any suggestions that you have for future videos that you want to see from me. And the next video is going to be a lot happier, and it's going to be a lot of a lighter mood. So stay tuned for that, and thank you all so much for tuning in to my channel. We are at 160 subscribers. I am excited. Thank you so much. Welcome to the new subscribers, and welcome back to the old ones. Thank you so much for watching my videos. Thank you for paying attention to me. Bye.